Okay, I want you to get one of the sheets out of the center box that says our edit and revise process and put it into your writing notebook and keep it to refer to after you've written your essays. Because this is going to be our procedure every time we write an essay. Once we have finished our rough draft, the first thing we're wanting to do is to reread it to yourself aloud. And the reason it's so important to read it out loud is because since you've just been thinking about what you've been writing, if you read over it silently, your brain is expecting to see what you were thinking that you wrote down. So if you left out a word or if you wrote a word other than what you really meant to, your brain's going to automatically fix it without even noticing that it was wrong. So you need to read it aloud. Now, I don't mean loudly where you're disturbing your neighbor, but just, kind of in a low voice, under your breath. Just make sure you move your lips and read it real softly, because it seems to take more brain power, I guess, to read something out loud, but it really does draw your attention to what's actually on the paper, and it will allow you to catch those mistakes like leaving out a word. And those are biggies, so you want to do that first and catch any big mistakes. And it'll also be a quick way to catch misspellings that you can fix right away. Okay, the next thing that you want to do is check for what we're going to call our AAAs. That's your action verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, because all good writing is descriptive, and the only way you're going to have descriptive writing is if you've got these three things. So we're literally going to count them in our essay. First step in finding the AAAs is finding your action verbs. You're simply going to read it very quickly and circle your action verbs and count them. The goal is to have at least 15. If you find you don't, you're going to have to stop and take a sentence that's got linking verbs and see if you can rewrite it to have action verbs. The next thing we're going to do is look for adjectives. So the way we're going to find our adjectives is we are going to first label all of our nouns with an N, and then we're going to use those to find our adjectives. Because if we just say, hey, go count your adjectives, it's hard to just find them thinking, well, they describe a noun. If you look at your noun and ask yourself this question, what kind of, and then plug that noun into the blank, anything that answers it is an adjective, and it's just a quick and for sure way to do it. Our goal is to make sure we have at least 15 adjectives, and if you don't, I'm going to show you how you can add adjectives on the fly. Okay, once we've made sure we have enough action verbs and enough adjectives, then we're going to count our adverbs. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go to each verb one at a time. We've already circled them, and we're going to ask ourselves this question. How, when, where, or how often did that verb take place? If there's one word in that sentence that answers the question, it's an adverb, and we're going to label it ADV. Our goal is to make sure we have at least 5. And again, if we don't, I'm going to show you a quick way to add some very quickly. Next thing, after we've read it aloud and we've checked for our AAAs, is we'll be making sure that we have at least 3 examples of figurative language in our essay. And of course, those are things like similes, metaphors, personification, those things that we're learning about right now. And then lastly, we need to make sure that we have a variety of sentences, not just all simple sentences. Our goal is to make sure that we have 2 compound and 2 complex sentences, but of course that's a lofty goal. We'll start by seeing if we can make sure we have at least 3, maybe 2 compound and 1 complex, or vice versa, 1 compound and 2 complex. And I'm going to model some of that for you right now. So, of course, what you would do is make sure you have this sheet on your desk to refer to it. Let's pretend I've just written this essay, so I'll pause the video and get this one out with me if you still have it, and then resume. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually revise and edit our body paragraph first to make sure we get at least that one done, because that's where all the meat of our essay is. If we have time to go back and do the introductory and concluding paragraph, all the better, but we're going to start with our body paragraph. So, like I said, we've just read it out loud, or we're pretending we have, so the first thing I'm going to do now is look for my triple A's: action verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. So, I'm going to read it to myself, and I'm going to find all my action verbs first. Remember, action verbs show action. We're not counting linking verbs because they don't help us in our writing. So I would read every sentence in my body paragraph. The most important reason chocolate swirl cake is my favorite dessert is the wonderful taste. Linking verbs, but no action verb. You might be thinking of taste as a verb, but remember, parts of speech is all about how the word is used in a sentence. Here it's not used to show action. I'm not actually tasting something. I'm talking about the wonderful taste. So taste here is actually a noun. Next sentence, though, it's used differently. It tastes best when it comes right out of the oven. So actually here it is a verb, so I'd circle it. Comes is a verb, I'd circle it. Right out of the oven, and it is served with an ice cold. Well, served is an action verb. With an ice cold glass of milk. To create a rich flavor, create shows action. That's an action verb. 2 whole cans of Hershey's syrup go into the milk. Mix. Technically go is the linking verb, so I'm not going to circle it. Chocolate swirl cake taste. Taste. I should circle that because here it is used as a verb. And I would keep going until I've done everything in the whole body paragraph. Then I would count them all to make sure that I have at least 15. Okay, once I've done that, I move on, and I would make sure I've got enough adjectives. So next thing I'm going to do is count all my adjectives. And of course I don't have time to do it all the way through, so we're pretending I've just counted my action verbs and I have 15. So now I'm going to go on and find my adjectives. I said the first thing I have to do is read it and label all my nouns. Remember, nouns, person, place, or thing. So, the most important reason chocolate swirl cake, reason is a thing. I'm going to label it. Chocolate swirl cake is, now cake is definitely a noun. Swirl and chocolate here are not a noun because they're actually describing cake. Is my favorite dessert, dessert is a thing, is the wonderful taste. Well, I've already said taste here is used as a noun. It tastes best when it comes right out of the oven. Oven is a thing. And it is served, and you've noticed we're not marking pronouns, just nouns. With an ice cold glass, glass is a noun, and milk is a noun. So I would continue on until I've done the whole body paragraph. Then, once I've done that, remember the only reason I'm labeling my nouns is so I can use those to find my adjectives. So once I've done the whole body paragraph, I go back to the very first noun. And remember, I'm going to ask myself this question. What kind of, and I plug my noun into that blank. What kind of reason? Well, important answers that, doesn't it? So that's an adjective. I'm going to write ADJ above it. Go to my next noun, cake. What kind of cake? Well, it's chocolate, and it's a swirl cake. Chocolate swirl cake. Actually, I think I might count chocolate swirl as one. Kind of one concept, even though there's 2 words. Next noun is dessert. What kind of dessert? Favorite? ADJ, another adjective. Next one, taste. What kind of taste? Wonderful. ADJ. My next one is oven. What kind of oven? I don't have anything that answers that, so I don't have an adjective with it. Go to my next noun, glass. What kind of glass? Ice cold. ADJ, it's an adjective of milk. Milk is a noun. What kind of milk? Don't have one. And I would continue this until I had done the whole thing, and then I go back and count my adjectives. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. I'd go and count them all. Make sure that I have 15. Now, let's just say that I don't have enough. What would I do to fix that? Well, all you have to do is find a noun and ask yourself that question again. What kind of? And plug it in. Let's see if I can find one that I don't have. Let's just take this for example. Say I was reading along and I realize I don't have enough adjectives. I'm going to pick out a noun. Let's say we picked recipe, and I would ask myself, okay, what kind of recipe could it be? Well, it's easy to follow, so I could say simple. So the symbol to say we're going to interject a word here is an upside down V. So I would put that to say I'm inserting this word, and I would write simple right there by it. And now the reader knows I meant to write the word simple right there, and he would read that sentence as the simple recipe is easy to follow. I've just added another adjective. So that's how you would fix it if you counted and found you were short. Okay, so let's say now we just have finished doing that, and so we've got 15 adjectives. Now I'm checking for adverbs. No, so remember, the reason we found our action verbs is not just to make sure we have enough, because they also paint pictures and are needed for descriptive writing, but also to help us find our adverbs. So now I'm going to go to my verbs one at a time, and I'm going to ask myself that question that I have written on this sheet. How, when, where, or how often, and plug in that verb. And actually, I made a mistake. I meant to circle taste, not best. How, when, where, or how often does it taste? Well, actually, best kind of answers that, so I'm going to put ADV right there. It's an adverb, I'm thinking. My next verb, comes. How, when, where, or how often does it come? Well, now you feel like saying right out of the oven, but that's a phrase, and an adverb has got to be one word. So I don't seem to have an adverb for that. Look at my next one. How, when, where, how often is it served? Don't have one. So I would keep going until I've done the whole thing, and again, I would count and make sure that I have at least 5. It's harder to write adverbs into what you're writing, so we're not going to have as many adverbs as we are going to have adjectives. But let's say we count it and we don't have 5. How would you add an adverb? Well, you would have to look through it and pick a verb and ask yourself the question in reverse. How, when, where, how often, and see if you can think of an answer to that. So let's see if we can. Let's look at this sentence. Let's say we wanted to add an adverb here. What is my verb? However, cutting into the cake. I hope you're thinking cutting. Okay, so I would look at my verb cutting and ask myself, well, how could I have cut, or when could I have cut into the cake? So I could think, well, let me focus on how. Cutting, how could I have been cutting into the cake? How about insert carefully? However, carefully cutting into the cake reveals, that would add an adverb right there. So you see how you can add those if you need to, and it's actually very easy. And I'll give you a hint. Most adverbs are going to end in the 2 letters ly. So that would be the next thing that I'd want to do in my revising process. Now, the other 2 things we're going to talk about later, but for right now, I want us to focus on checking for the AAAs. So I have got a sample text in the center box that I want you to take now and perform this same thing right here. Find your action verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, count and make sure you have enough, and if you don't, I want you to use the process that I just showed you to go back and add some. Okay? And make sure you put your name on it.